It's so nice to meet both of you, Sir James and Lady Galway. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be interviewed today.
Oh, of course, it's nice to be here.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. Sir James, of course, like so many people around the world, you've been a flute hero of mine for a very long time. And Lady Galway, I've just recently been listening to more of your performances, and I'm in awe of how you guys play together and how you sound uniquely like yourselves, but then it's so complimentary and conversational when you play duets. So I'm super
Thank
excited
you.
to talk about things today. This is the third interview in my series about creative flutists and flutists that put their own spin on things. So I'm going to hand it over to you guys to maybe talk about what's going on with you these days, about the Flute Festival and anything else you want to share in terms of your creative projects.
Sure. Well, I think we've always been creative, right, James? And you've been very creative all these years,
Yes.
right? You've always kind of been thinking of different things to do and
Yes.
collaborations and
Yes. Yes. I think that's what makes it tick when you really put your thoughts on paper and take them all off one after the other when you've done them. Just one little idea after the other.
making them happen.
Yeah.
Because I mean, even though at this point in our careers, or even the last 20 years, of course, when you have top management, they can put certain things into motion, but you sit there with these managers and you have to come up with your own ideas to sell it to the public. The manager is not going to come up and say, "Oh, I have a great idea." And actually, when they do have a great idea, usually my husband has a different idea, right? But we've been very fortunate that we've never had to get on the gimmick circle, I think, and we've been able to be true to our art. And of course, but that brings it back to, as we're always, students and teaching and mentoring is our passion. We get to play the flute together. We get to go around the world, and we all had people help us when we were young and set us on our path. So we feel that that's our job. And I learned from my husband, and we try to pass it on. But if you have the good foundation in your playing, and you have the good, foundation really, and you work on that, then the world is wide open, right?
Yes.
Yes, I've been exploring some things of yours online in terms of videos of master classes. I even listened to a little bit of a podcast, and I'm really struck by how passionate you both are about passing along what you know. Just from little things, like I watched you teach a master class, Lady Galway, and you were so down to earth and just willing to roll up your sleeves and work with the student. And then Sir James, you get so passionate just talking about making sequences out of little passages and etudes. And I
Yeah.
think it's amazing how not only are you creative in what you do every day, but you're excited to pass it along to other people, and you do so very generously.
Well, thank you. Well, I feel I'm very fortunate because I'm married to James Galway, and I've been listening to him for, we're married a long time now, 37 years. So
Wow.
we're together 39 years. That's a long time. But of course,
Wow.
like everyone else, I grew up with that beautiful flute playing in my ear. And like I said, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for people that stepped up in my life and helped. And you never forget that.
Right.
You never ever forget it. Same with my husband. And so, if you can't pass on your gift, why do you have the gift, really? And that's what it's really about. And when it comes from the heart, and I think everything we do has to come from the heart. You have to have your technique, your foundation, your discipline, your work every day. But the audience is always going to hear the music. The audience, is not just going to they want something magic to happen really within the phrase, or you want to say something with it. And I've always heard that in your playing, and we learn that. But yeah, we have a good time teaching, basically, don't we?
Yeah.
Even when we do events for young students, I did one last week and I had these 70 little faces staring at me, and I just can't, and it's for students in Ireland and it was for charity. We support Music Generation, where they believe Bono came up with the idea in 2008 that all students in Ireland should be able to have free access to music education. So we've jumped on that, and as we do. And these 70 little faces were just staring, and they were so happy, and they asked, that we could just try to inspire. And I think that that's our gift, because we have such enthusiasm, and I've learned that from him. I've watched my husband over these years just do tour after tour. There was a time when there were 27 concerts on a tour. 27 concerts on an American tour, with all the travel, all the rehearsal, all the publicity, all the TV. And every night he'd stand up and it would be fresh. And I think, well, that's what I have to learn to pass on. And
Yes.
So it's been a challenging time this time, being at home for us, because it's different.
Yeah, she became a really good cook.
I was always a good cook. Well, not when we first married. When we first married,
No.
he used to cook for me. So we can talk about creative, but it has been, we've had to learn technically how everything works. We're not like these kids that know everything about everything. And but we turned out, we had taken an office, and we had a housing our music library, because we moved our house a year ago, just before the pandemic, thank God. And so we have this music library that actually could only house half of my husband's music. He has
Oh
such
my
a
goodness.
collection. We have the scores for every single thing he's ever played or recorded in your
Yeah.
life, right?
Right.
It's incredible. I mean, 70 boxes came out of one room. And
I
we
mean,
have we had 3 studios.
That's like
And we
a
have
museum that already exists for the living legend.
Well, it is, and the idea was that the students would come last summer and help me sort it out, but then of course the lockdown and everything, they couldn't. So when I get some assistance, we will, and we will start passing this on to different schools and we believe in that. But anyway, so we had the opportunity in this room. We moved the boxes into storage. We put what we could in the cupboards, and we've made it into a film studio. So we can just go in there without tripping on wires any time of the day and just film or Skype or
Switch it on and off
switch
you
it
go.
on. I mean, this is our home where we are now. And but I think the first thing when we came on, and I think it came from you actually, you wanted to start doing these mini little tutorials, we call them, right?
Yes.
And you started the Galway at Home series, because we thought we've got to do something. We've got to inspire, because we might be home, but we have a lot more experience at dealing with different situations in our lives versus someone who's maybe in their teens or their 20s, someone in the middle of college who just doesn't know what's going on, and all of a sudden everything stops, or our young professionals who have been working very hard for years for competitions and auditions. And so I created something called Your Next Step. This was my free series that I would do online. And then also we decided that we weren't going to, everything was going to be free for at least for many months. And we did that because we felt that we just needed to encourage. And one of these days, actually, we might get paid.
Dream on, dream on.
Well, in addition to the generosity, it just creates a kind of really beautiful momentum.
Yes.
And I know you guys are getting inspired as you're inspiring other people.
Yes. Well, like I said, when you see 70 little faces staring at you, and they're so excited because, and they remembered, many of them, well, they've grown up, remembered 4 years ago meeting my husband. Now they know who he is, and they remembered me, and just telling them certain things. And they say it's just changes their flute playing. But what I believe is that we have the ability, and I learned this from my husband, to change lives.
Yes.
And because we know people, we can help people. If they want to know about an audition, who they can stay with, where they can go, they need an instrument, we point them in the right direction. Don't spend your money on this, right?
Right.
You're always saying that, You're always saying, don't spend your money on that head joint. You don't need that head joint. Or what do you say? You say that head joint.
Can you tell the difference in this head joint that cost 7,000 and the headpiece that cost 200? Can you hear 7,000 worth of difference?
Right.
But you know yourself, Terry, as a student, with your students, that it's a long journey becoming someone in your profession, whether you go into performing, whether you use it, your music or the discipline you've learned in music in other areas of your lives, which is great, and you can still have music to fill your life on the side, and maybe have something else to pay the rent. But you never have to lose the love for that. But it is a long life, and so I've been trying to put the brakes on some students, but I know, 22, 23, at 25, and they say, yeah, but this head joint is really great. And, they say I sound great on it. They say, who says it? The people selling it to you.
Usually.
And what I'm saying is wait, because sometimes what students don't know, and I only discovered this the last couple of years through trials with my husband's very good flutes and changing head joints, that even on the level of our instruments, if you put one head joint onto another flute, and we're talking really good gold handmade flutes, they don't match. It doesn't work because of different, whether it's the tubing. Rainer Lefan actually pointed this out to us. And
I would say that playing the same head joint for a long time pays off. I mean, Kirsten Mccall, I think, has played the same head joint all his life. And Gareth Davies has played the same head joint for 15 years. I played the same head joint for 15 years. Then I changed to a gold headpiece.
But you always have the headpiece that belongs with the flute.
That's right.
Yeah, we're a little old-fashioned. We don't go for the latest fix. But then again, there has to be the balance. But we're talking about students who are struggling. And most students are struggling. And it'd be better to save that $7,000 or $5,000 towards a new flute.
Yeah, send it to me.
So anyway, we try to advise on that, and our flute makers will probably kill us for this because, they would always be at the festival, and actually some of the awards that we give at our festival are head joints, and they do make a difference for the students. We're just trying to help them for the long run, and especially these days when life is a little more difficult. So it's all these different kind of things that we like to do and help with. And at our upcoming festival, because we're online, we're able to bring on different business leaders. Last year we had composers. We had Howard Shore, Lord of the Rings, that my husband played on, and Lo Lieberman, and John Coriano, who wrote The Pied Piper, and Valerie Coleman. We also had our manager for Chemi Arts. We had Graham Parker, the head of Universal Records. And so they'll be coming back on. Leonard Slatkin hopefully will be joining us to talk about auditions, and all the professionals that come will mentor in a way, because we have interviews with each artist, and then we have the life of the orchestral musician where the students can really, and the artist will say, the auditions today are like this. They're not like when I was 25 years ago. So they give them a lot of firsthand advice, which is what we really try to bring on, like the reality of or what to look for when you're really trying to do that. And then we have deans of universities who come on and all that. That besides teaching and flute choir and our question and answer every day. And then we have concerts in the evening. And this year we have 13 guest artists that they all said yes. And my assistant said to me, Lady Galway, I don't want to say anything, but do you realize we have more artists this year and less days than last year? And I said, yes, I know, but isn't it great that they all said hello?
Right.
And they all said yes.
Talk about creativity. So many great performers, and you guys working with composers and business leaders. What a convergence of creative minds. Actually, I have a small opportunity here. I have a student, Sir James. His name is Chad, and to say that he is a huge fan is an understatement. And he just texted me that he's available, and I'm going to call him and ask if he just wants to ask you one question, and
Sure,
just see if he answers. If he doesn't answer, I'll cut this part out of the interview. But
Okay.
See if he answers. He has studied your sound, your embouchure, your
Beautiful.
vibrato. He's just
Well, he must be good.
yes, he's very good. Chad, are you there?
Hey, Dr. Sanchez.
Hi, Chad. You're not going to believe this, but currently I'm on Zoom with Sir James and Lady Galway.
I'm sorry, the voice was robotic. You said,
I said, currently I'm on Zoom with Sir James and Lady Galway. Can you believe it?
oh, wow.
Yeah. Yes. And I just wanted to give you the opportunity to ask Sir James one question if you have a question.
One question?
One
Okay.
question.
I would like to ask, I guess, on your journey from maybe an ordinary boy from Belfast to an extraordinary person, how did you have the confidence to believe in yourself like that, even when sometimes people didn't?
Did you hear his question?
I did actually. Well, I never really paid attention to people's opinion of me. I just got on with it. I mean, you can't base your playing on somebody else's opinion. You've got to do it yourself and show them how it should go.
Yeah.
And-
Chad, that was a pretty good answer, huh?
Well, I remember one time, and it's the only time in my life that this happened. I had a friend who was the head of music in Belfast for the BBC, and he wanted me to play for his boss. So I went along there and played my little Chaminade concertino.
How old would you be?
Oh, maybe 12 or 13, something like that. And when I'd finished, the boss said to my friend, "I don't think this child has exceptional qualities." Right in front of me. And then later on, when I got a job in a Berlin Phil, I thought, man, I would love this guy to be alive so I can stick it to him.
That's a fantastic story. Yes, I once had a conductor when I was a young flutist. I was playing an audition and I learned all the notes and the rhythms for my Mozart concerto, but I didn't know a lot about style. And he cut me off and said, "Let's not insult Mozart any further."
Oh, terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, it stayed with me
Well,
for years.
A person like that has really big problems, personally.
Yes.
When you're young and you're vulnerable and this is what you want, and of course you want the approval, it's very hard. And that's also why we come on board always encouraging, because you have to, and also there is no competition like at our flute festivals. Anything we do, it's all different levels and all different ages also, because I learned that from my husband, being a New York flutist, that I think the word competition is built into New York. Also, New York competition, competitive flutists. I went to Ireland and I saw all these flutists playing together, and I had never seen anything like this. And he was leading the pack, and wherever he went at that time, all the flutists would come. Do you remember the story of the girl who followed your car?
Yeah.
He was like a rock star. This is before your time, Chad. He was this rock star, and I remember you couldn't get near him at Carnegie Hall. This is way before we knew each other. And then this one doctor, a girl that we met later, became an oncologist, says, "Oh, I followed your car for ages after you left the concert. My girlfriends and I ran down the street." It was, now what makes, so there we go for the students. Why was that? What was it? And it comes down to the music and the flute playing. And that's, you have to, and this is what also our business leaders who come on, our manager, and they say, and he'll also say, you have to be different. You have to really, and you keep going forward, for Chad, you don't look left, you don't look right. You just keep going, and you have to find that, like you always say, you have to find that every day, right?
Yeah. You could say to your conductor friend, well, how famous are you for conducting Mozart? What do you know about Mozart?
Well, you can't do that when you're a young kid. You don't do
Right.
that. Well, you would, but I mean, only James Galway also walks away from the Berlin Philharmonic. But no, but also you always say that you have to find this every day in your practice, right?
That's right. That's right. Every day is a new day to start something else, a new day to get better. And you know what's an interesting thing? You'll probably come across this in your teaching. You talk for 5 minutes about the embouchure and how it should go and all that sort of stuff. And then you say to the student, try that out. And what they do is they put the flute to their lips, completely disregard everything you said, and continue as normal.
Yes. Yes. Words don't teach, only experience does.
Yeah, but listening is a big thing, and I think this could be is something that during this time of it's actually a time of quiet because although I know that a lot of people don't feel quiet inside because this everything can be a little bit uncomfortable. It's a time when you can really you call on the discipline within yourself that you've had since the age of 9 or 10 when you picked up that instrument, and also you develop this within this quiet time in your practice and the focus. The focus and the concentration, because when you're on that stage, and you know this yourself, Terri, and when you're on tours and stuff, the focus and the discipline has got to be so strong within you because you're tired, you don't have time to practice. The plane that maybe was going to take 2 hours, remember the time it took 7 hours? 7 hours to get to where we're going, and we were shattered.
It was in Texas.
It was in Texas, actually.
Oh no! Oh no!
Houston Airport, and we were going to have a free day. That's right. And we took the early plane. We got up at like 4 after playing a concert the night before because I wanted a free day in Palm Desert. Remember?
Yeah.
And we ended up being stuck in Houston Airport, but never mind. We still like Houston.
But there was a place between Houston.
Oh, that was probably in Galveston.
No, it wasn't. It was some places not famous, but they landed there.
Oh yeah, I remember this.
And they had absolutely no food at all except
fried food, and we don't eat fried food.
But it was minimal fried food, like the dog burgers or.
No, it wasn't dog burgers.
What do you call those?
Bo's Burgers or something like that. Hot dogs.
Hot dogs.
Hot dogs.
Hot dogs. I mean, I never had something
I know.
so disgusting.
So so take a day like that and and the free day you were going to have, but and you're tired. You're really, really tired, and you've got to get up and play and deliver. That's the whole thing. So use this time to focus on really and listening to yourself when you're playing, listening to music. I just did an interview and I said, instead of going to WhatsApp and Facebook and all this, go turn on a recording of a really great orchestra. We're very fortunate here. We have a Bayerisch radio station and it has the Bayerische Rundfunk.
That's Bayerische Bavaria.
Bavaria. And the music is we're just hearing music and music. We heard this violinist yesterday also, right?
Yeah.
It was just amazing. And
Playing Tchaikovsky's violin concerto.
Brahms. It just takes your heart away. And if you want to feel inspired, you want to be a pioneer in your own life, listen to really great composers and great conductors. And then you get the ideas if maybe you want to become a composer and write something or arrange something. And it gives you the confidence also because it takes your mind away from the troubles. Once you're involved in really hearing music, all of a sudden you think, oh yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to work on my practice routine, but I think I'm going to call some friends. We're going to get together and plan this. Students can still plan for a year from now. Work out what your recital programs can be. I'm sure you know, Terri, that your students are the last minute, right? Scrambling for pieces on recitals. Know your pieces, right?
Yeah, from memory.
From memory.
Yes, before I say goodbye to Chad, I do have to sing his praises a little bit. He is an excellent, shining example of a student who just consumes music all day long.
Wonderful.
Great orchestras, great flute players. He plays from memory. He does all kinds of beautiful things.
Well,
So
he should
Great.
come to the festival.
come to the Galway Flute Festival, Chad.
You've got till April 15th to get your recording in. And we're being very nice this year. If you can't find a pianist, it's okay.
Okay.
But well, actually, Chad, if you want to be around some flutists, shall I just read off who we've got this year coming?
Yeah, I saw it on the website and I was in awe of the lineup.
Well, we start with Emily Bionian, solo flutist who everyone knows, the Royal Concertgebouw Orchestra. Dennis Bouriakov, solo flutist, Los Angeles Philharmonic, who came to study with my husband at the age of 13. And we mentored him, and my husband was able to mentor him and make sure that he got through his 4 years at the Royal Academy of Music, helping him get funds from outside friends of ours. This is what we do. We don't just end after 1 week. Erin Bouriakov, his wife, I just gave a performance last year that of a Sankan and some beautiful Böhm, and it was just fantastic. And so Erin is going to come. Sylvia Caradu, she's a regular at our festival. She was in the Vienna Philharmonic for a bit. She now just won the solo flute position, I believe, in the
Orchestre Nationale
in France.
of France.
France, yeah. And she also teaches in Berlin, and she teaches in not Weimar, in Stuttgart, no, Salzburg, no, one of these places. Anyway, she's doing a lot of teaching, and the reason also why we choose these is these flutists is because we are in Europe, and we try to see what the needs of our students are for studying. And for any European flutist to go study in the America, it's impossible because it's so expensive. But even for American flutists that may want, we always try to encourage them that there are possibilities for them to take this time while they're young to look on the internet, and that they can get the funds. There are grants where they can study in Europe with these people. So we try to bring them together. Gareth Davies, solo flutist, London Symphony. Great teacher, talks a lot about all the recordings they've done. He gives a lot of information on that. Stefan Ragnar Holskutsin, solo flutist, Chicago Symphony, formerly at the New York Metropolitan Opera Orchestra, studied with my husband also. Francesco Loy is a solo flutist of the Carlo Felice Teatro Orchestra. Francesco is an opera flutist, so he works a lot with the opera excerpts with our students and everything. Very, very important. There's many openings in operas, and the students are not prepared. So we try to bring that on. Nicola Mazzante, everyone in America knows him. Nicola has been with us for many, many years, and he works on piccolo and also flute with all the students. And then we have Kirsten Mccall, who is the other solo flutist, the Royal Concertgebouw Orchestra. And Kirsten teaches also extended techniques. He's fantastic.
He plays with these extended techniques like some people play with Mozart. It's dead easy, and it's so impressive.
And also what he does, I don't know how he can do it on the course, but he could at least talk about it. And this would be interesting for the students to do on their own. When he teaches orchestral excerpts, he takes the parts of the flute, oboe, clarinet, bassoon, and he makes them into like a quartet, so that the students are playing together and they're hearing the other parts and working on the intonation and everything. That's a wonderful experience they have. Lorna McGee has been with us many, many years, also solo flutist, Pittsburgh Symphony. Ulla Mielman is a wonderful flutist from the Danish National Symphony Orchestra, also just got the position of associate professor at the Royal Conservatory there. Yeah, and this is also a good thing because maybe somebody says, oh, I could go study in Denmark. Denmark's not so expensive. Amsterdam is a great place to go study. Places people don't really think they're safe. They're good for Americans to go. And Ulla is an expert on Nielsen. She works a lot on Nielsen. She talks about the folk songs, and she also the concerto, of course. And then we have Karl-Heinz Schutz. We're very happy he's coming back. Principal flutist, of course, of the Vienna Philharmonic. And Karl-Heinz is always so busy. The only way we could get him was online, and I was actually really surprised when he said yes. Thaddeus Watson is American. He's been played for 45 years in the Frankfurt Radio Symphony, maybe it was 40 years, piccolo, flutist, student of my husband's way back. So he has some really nice stories to tell. And there are two other people that are on not the wait list, they're waiting for their tours to see if there are going to be any tours this year. We can't say who they are, and in a way, I don't know where we're going to fit them because it's getting really full. And each artist will do a master class, and they will also do question answers, and they all are preparing different performances to send to us to show in the evening. So it's going to be interesting because they all have a lot to offer, and what we try to let the students know is that everything is available to them. There's nothing like I can't do it. I could never go study in Europe. You have to, if that's what you want to do, that's what you have to do now, because as you know, there's no time later.
Right.
You know. So anyway, it's just a little idea that we have.
Well, talk about changing lives. A gathering like that, everybody who's privileged enough to be part of it is going to walk away a changed person, a changed musician.
I hope so. And of course, my husband teaches every day, and he does these daily warm-ups, and then he also teaches. And for me, there's nothing like it. And you conduct our flute choir.
I would love to see Sir James conducting a flute choir.
Actually, he's really good. He's really good. Except one year, it was our 30th anniversary. We had so many flutes that I think the back didn't hear the front, right? Yeah. Remember? So many bass flutes and low flutes. And we also have people like Ava Kingma who lends us some instruments. And when we're together in a real setting, then, you know, we have, of course, we have flute makers and everything, but we do the best we can. We're also going to have this year, we have a platform that we're building, so everything will be available on the platform, and it will be through Zoom, but then we're going to click over to the other Zoom where all the students can see each other. We're hoping, I don't know if it'll be every morning, has to do again with the schedule because we deal with time zones. A student in Korea or a student in California versus a student in Europe, we have to see where everybody fits. And then also what we do, because we're always thinking of the student, is we're asking the guest artist also to teach late at night so that the student like yourself who's just getting up or who is coming from the West Coast can also have an opportunity to study with one of these European flutists. So we really do think of all this. And, you know, we could very easily at this point say, well, Sir James, like you, and this is what gets me in a lot of classes. The name is there, but the person doesn't really teach. They might teach 1 hour a day, 2 hours a day, you know, and the rest is like assistants that it's very nice, but
assistants who you wouldn't study with anyway.
Or somebody who's coming up the ranks, which is fine, but I just think that when, you know, give the student what they need at this point. And the thing is, if we're saying to them, this is the Galway Flute Festival, then James Galway's going to teach. And it's like when my assistant says, those are long days. And I said, well, it's not as long as last year. And she says, yes, it is. But we've got my husband starting mostly in the afternoon, but we'll see. He might have to teach some Asian students in the morning, but we love it. And, you know, and then also we worked very hard to try to keep the price down as low as possible. $300 for, or Swiss francs, it's about the same. If anybody's wondering, for these 7 days of watching everything and learning the warm-ups, and then we've made it available for a month later. So I think that it's something that could really, definitely change the concept of the flute and encourage also.
For $300, that's an incredible value. Just a lifetime of ripple effects from something like that. Will you remind me the deadline one more time for applications?
Applications, if they'd like to perform in Sir James's class or my class, is April 15th.
April 15th.
American Tax Day.
Right.
Except I believe this year we've got a reprieve. No, but April 15th, yes. So, and really, I think no one should feel shy that they're not good enough. Many times my husband will listen to someone and he'll say, I want to teach this one. And I'll say, well, do you think maybe there's, with the intonation and this and that, we might offer them more time, like in my class? I don't want to say that, but he'll say, no, this one I want to teach. And you know what? He always knows. Actually, I don't usually argue with him. So we have awards. Also, we have normally head joints given by some flute makers. Whether they're going to be given or not, we'll see. But we've asked all our students, we are in the process of, that have been awarded head joints over the years that are currently not playing them, and we actually know what they're playing, to give them back to us, and we will redistribute. And sometimes we're given some piccolos from some companies and things like that. Last year we gave away 2 piccolos and a Monka headpiece and some scholarships and everything, because we do hope we'll be in person next year. We do hope. And also, there's nothing saying that we won't do a mini festival out there in the States. So there you go, Terry. There's an idea for us.
Yes, actually, I'm supposed to say hello from Carolyn Nussbaum. She
Oh,
sent
Carolyn.
warm wishes, and she can't wait for you guys to come back to Texas at some point.
Well, Carolyn is a big supporter of our
She
festival.
really, really is. Yeah.
She's a big supporter of everyone, and I love her series she's doing, highlighting all the young players.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, I'm teaching a course right now hosted by Carolyn's. It's called Fall in Love with Your Flute.
I
And so,
saw it. Wonderful. Yes.
yeah, so
Really.
a lot of adult amateurs and people coming back to the flute after years. It's been really rewarding.
Great.
Carolyn's made that possible. I'm going to say goodbye to Chad now. Thank you, Chad, for being on with us, and be sure and look at that application deadline for the festival.
The GalwayFluteFestival.com. You can't miss it.
Bye, Chad.
Bye, Chad. I hope we'll see
Bye,
you.
Chad. Bye, Chad.
By the
You
way, the 300 is an auditor. It's 700 for a performer.
okay, 300 auditors, 700.
Yeah, but 700 also gives you a lesson with Sir James or myself, plus the possibility of playing in any of the other master classes. So that's what it would cost you to go have a lesson in Vienna would be a lot more than that.
You know, if you don't mind circling back, we were talking about instruments earlier, and Sir James, when I was in my undergraduate at CU Boulder in Colorado, I was fortunate enough to be in the audience as you taught a master class, and you did one of your demonstrations where you walked around and you played various flutes, and you even borrowed a flute from somebody up in the front row, and it was a very poorly maintained student flute, and you still sounded like you. And that was a very meaningful experience for me, because it helped click into place that our bodies truly are the instrument. And of course, you know, we're always finding the sweet spots in the flute acoustics, but you know, how we hold our bodies and how we connect our bodies to the flute, it was extremely memorable for me watching you do that. Do you want to speak to that at all? That demonstration, have you done that in a long time?
No, as a matter of fact, I don't normally do it, but
Oh,
I know how to play all the instruments, because I know how to get my embouchure into the right place. And this is an interesting thing to consider. When you play the flute and you have a lesson on the sonority, for example, I notice that most people, they understand it and then they try to do it, but what do? They forget everything they've heard in the last 5 minutes, and they go back to their old embouchure. I mean, if you want to get better, you really have to change. And when you pick up your flute to play the first note, it should not be business as usual. It should be business in the future. Really get a good tone.
Oh, that's very good. Business in the future.
very good.
Or engage. You always say engage.
Yeah, write that down.
Yeah, I will. No, no. I tell you, I'm always making notes in his lessons all the time, or all the things. But lots of times sometimes you will pick up different instruments, or, for instance, the Gemeinhardt Crusader flute that you helped build.
Oh, yeah.
And they were very nervous when they gave you that first time. It was the Kennedy Center, and you wanted to play your whole recital on it. And of course, me saying the man with the golden flute, you know, he's got to play the gold flute. Also, because I'm playing gold flute, I like it to match Well,
It
anyway,
would have matched.
I know it would have matched actually.
But
because-
these are really good flutes and great value for the money.
But you did pick it up out of the case and just play it.
Yes, I did.
For your encore, yeah. Yeah, the Crusader, the Gemeinhardt Crusader flute, Carol carries them. My husband spent a couple of years helping design the headpiece on this flute. And it's not for us again, you know. We don't need another flute on his biography that his name is put to. It's because we believed that a student they needed a bit of direction, but also that, well, you can say it actually. They shouldn't have to pay as much money for a flute like yours in order to have a good headpiece that responds.
That's right. That's right. They shouldn't have to pay through the nose for a good flute.
Because, like we said, you know, auditions cost, lessons cost.
But you know, it's a very interesting thing trying to market this flute, because everybody thinks unless they spend something like $25,000, the flute's no good.
Or
This
even 12. Yeah.
This is not true. I mean, for $3,000, you can get a really good Gemeinhardt, which will really stand up in
Concert.
stand up in concert. Or
Also in time, because now we've had them a couple of years,
yeah,
and we take them out of the safe like your other ones, and they
That's
work.
right. Yeah.
Here's another thing too, which is very strange. I heard from someone recently. They said it was about flutes, and we're very blessed. We have a wonderful flute collection. My husband's been collecting flutes or buying flutes since you
Keeping them.
since you ever got your first job. Really, when was your first okay, the Haynes we don't have anymore. It was the Cooper and the Powells, right?
Yes.
70s, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So before most of these kids were born. And these flutes sit in our safe, or two safes because there are so many, and we pull them out and they play. So when people say to me, oh, well, you know, it's good to have a flute, but, you know, in a couple of years it'll be no good. It'll be worn down. And what's interesting is these flutes have probably had more playing on them and more notes played on them than your average flutist. So they don't wear down. They don't wear down. I mean, we might have to bring them and get the pads seated, but we don't send our flutes every year for an overhaul. And
No. As a matter of fact,
the Muramatsus haven't gone back in years.
one of my Muramatsus I didn't play for about 15 years. And I decided, okay, I'm going to try this flute. I got it out and it worked perfect. I mean, you can't ask for better than that. And it's with this standard of flute making that I went to Gemeinhardt to make a student model, which I thought any student can afford and can really play perfect.
Wow.
Many flute makers will tell you that Sir James has been a big influence in the flute that students are playing on today. And Muramatsu will be the first one to say it. When we first got married, Muramatsu was with us all the time. They were on tour with us all the time because you would be discussing the flute and the building of an instrument.
And his two top engineers, Mr. Aoki and Mr. Sone, they would come with me on tour. And I'd say to him, shift this key up a little bit. You know, it goes a bit too low on the flute. I'm talking about the D, middle D key.
Yeah.
Sometimes it goes a bit too low. It needs to be a little bit higher. Things like this, just that makes it easier to play.
Mm-hmm. And we heard from Muramatsu years ago, and they said, you know, we have everything that Sir James ever told us we took on board, and that's the result of the modern flute today. And if that's not a compliment, you know, many people advertise all the time. And the other flutes that have my husband's names on were gifts by the flute makers. We didn't know, actually, that for your 70th birthday that Nagahara was making a James Galway flute, did we? It just rolled up.
Wow.
And then Haynes did the same thing. So these instruments the company was honoring him. But also when we found out that Haynes was making this flute for you, the Q series, then you started to work with them and say, okay, before you do this, let's discuss the flute. He always takes the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And no gadgets at all.
Well, I have a C-sharp trill.
Yeah, I know, but no thumb ports and no gizmo on that. You believe in
No.
moving your finger around the bottom of the
Yes.
very simple, old-fashioned instruments. They're good instruments. So, not everyone had. When we were young, we didn't have great flutes when we were young. I mean, okay, some people did, but I know that this is also a problem for some of the students at the moment, which is why they get a headpiece. And if the headpiece is going to really help them at the moment, it's definitely worth it. We just try to say to them, balance. And that's where, of course, someone like you, Terri, I know would advise them. Or Carol, also Carol.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts about all the instruments. I know you have a busy schedule today, and I do want to ask one personal question. I don't know if you've ever seen John Wion's Vibrato page, where he's got little samples of famous flute players and their vibrato. And Sir James, you're on there, and he's got just a beautiful moment in your playing. And then he has the vibrato played again 300% slower.
Wow.
So that you can listen to the shape of the waves. And it's a really interesting page to study and explore vibrato. And when I listen to the sample of your vibrato, not only in real time, but 300% slower, I mean, the only word I can think of is magical. And it's incredible, the depth of the waves and how even in slow motion, you're evoking the voice of an opera singer in your playing. And so this is just a very personal connection I've had, and in a way you've inspired me. So I was wondering if you would take a moment and speak about vibrato.
Well, what can I say about vibrato? It's very difficult to talk about vibrato, to give people guidelines how to do it. I think the best way to do it is to get a good breathing and a good breath control and a good support, and then the vibrato might fall in automatically. But when it comes to breathing, most flute players haven't even started. Their teacher said, take a breath after that C. The question from the student should be, how? Is this a breath like, or is it one of these? You see, sometimes you only need a little breath to get to the end of a phrase. And you really don't need to arrive at the end of a phrase out of breath. But I would advise you to team up with a singer and ask them how to do this vibrato. Or, failing that, you can get Singing for Dummies, and there's a very good chapter on vibrato in there.
Or failing that, you can go to one of our free on home series that we did early in the pandemic, where he talks about the breathing. But to backtrack also, you learned originally from a singer.
Yes, I did.
So this right there, Terri, exactly what you're saying. And also, didn't you study with a singer at one point? You said you took some lessons with a singer?
I did.
Yeah, so you see, this is Anne-Maria Callas. You listen to opera a lot?
Yeah.
And so this is a part.
When I was in the Berlin Philharmonic, I saw that Lakmé was coming up. So I wondered, I got out my flute, I'll try Lakmé. Was nowhere near one breath. Nowhere near it. And then I thought, I got to do something about the breathing situation. So a friend of mine, Rudy, in the violin section, was married to an opera singer. I said, Rudy, do you think your wife could give me a lesson on breathing? Right. So I went along to her house, actually, and she showed me how to do this. She said, okay, first of all, lie down on the floor. Now put your hands behind your back. Hold on to the lower part of the back, and then take a breath. And you feel it. You can feel it better when you're lying on the floor than when you're standing up. And then you need to learn about breathing under the belly button. That's a bit where the vibrato comes from. And all these things you need to study and you need to learn from someone who does it every day, like Pavarotti, Carlo Bergonzi, all these big time
I
singers.
remember we heard Joan Sutherland yesterday.
Oh, that was amazing.
Amazing, amazing.
If you want to hear something fantastic, get a recording of Joan Sutherland doing the Bell song from Lakmé.
Incredible,
Oh,
incredible.
wow. Well, I don't want to take too much time out of your busy schedule. Thank you for your generosity in just sharing ideas and for what you're doing with the festival. The ripple effects that you're creating in the flute and music world are just amazing. So thank you guys
Well,
so much.
thank you, Terry, and thank you for what you're doing also with all your work and podcasts and everything. Oh, we also wanted to mention that we're offering this year 2 day passes. So for the first day where we have lessons with Sir James, myself, plus our welcome, we will also have, I think, 2 guest artists teaching that day. So that's $50 for the day. That's pretty.
Oh, that's an affordable option for those that need one.
Yeah, but just to get an idea of, oh, maybe this would be something for the future. So, and I hope we can meet up in Texas and maybe do something together with Carol. That would be really nice.
Yeah.
And I know that Carol always takes us out for a nice Tex-Mex afterwards too. We love that too. My husband loves hot sauce. So
Oh, good to know.
there we go. I knew she'd light up, you see.
Yes.
But we wish Chad the best of luck, and also with your school year. And I have to say that I love the picture behind your head.
Thank you, my frog.
Your frog.
Yes, is that the one back there? Yes. So there's a beautiful book about Ping the Frog that teaches many lessons about life and learning, and that frog reminded me of the book.
Oh, we'll have to look for that. Well, thank you. Yes, I have another call coming on in a couple of minutes, so we're going to have to say goodbye. Do you want to say any parting?
No, just good luck with everything and keep practicing.
Yes.
Practice is actually where it's at. If you don't practice, it doesn't work. Failing to prepare is like preparing to fail.
Yes.
You see what I mean?
Practicing is the lifelong adventure. That's one thing I try to impart to my students all the time, is that it's not about getting there. The rewards are actually found in the practice itself. That's where you find who you are.
You know this business of spending 8 hours a day practicing? It's a load of rubbish. Nobody does that. It's absolute bunk. 2 hours a day is enough.
If they use it
It's
wisely.
enough. It's enough to get an average flute player better than average. You just want to get yourself better each day, a little step better.
Yes. Thank you so much for your words of wisdom.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Terry. And take care, and we'll see you soon.
Okay. See you
Okay.
soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.